Hello, and thanks for joining us for this Noteworks video tutorial. In this video, we'll show you how to set up and customize your own smart tasks, which basically let you schedule tasks to automatically be created in your system for any file you want based on a number of different possible triggers. These triggers can be things like status, substatus, or sales stage changes. It can be based on a fixed calendar date or a variable date. And it can also be based on whenever a workflow proceeds from one step to another. So there's obviously a lot of ground to cover there. So let's just jump right into it. First, head to the Settings tab. And once you're there, select Smart Tasks from the left-hand menu of Options. And here you'll be taken to your list of smart tasks. Now, these smart tasks and the options you can receive for them are broken out first by lean position of the files you're talking about, just because you'll have different fields accessible in the tasks based on lean position. Obviously, first position leans will have certain fields, and second position ones will have different ones. So that's why that's broken out. And then it's further broken down based on the type of trigger that the smart task relies on. So we'll walk through each of these individually, and we'll show you an example on how to build a possible smart task that you might really use for each of these types of triggers. So to start, first click the green Add Smart Task button at the top of the page. And here we can choose the kind of trigger that we want to base this on. So for this first example, we'll just start with status change trigger. And that means that anytime any loan in your system changes from one status or a set of statuses to another specific status, you'll have a task that's created automatically for that file. So to give an example, just walk you through this. Let's say that I want to create a task for my sales manager where every time our asset management and loss mitigation department processes a loan and he gets it from non-performing or any kind of non-performing substatus to an REO. In other words, anytime we take possession of the property and become owners of the property, and we have an REO as an asset, I want to create a task to be assigned where it will have my sales team do something like obtain a sales agent for the property to get it sold. So to do that, we'll say here with this first field from, this describes the status that the loan is changing from. So it can be a bunch of different things here. It can be a specific status, it can be any status, or it can be any status except a certain one. So for now, I just want to have all statuses as well as all substatuses and all sales stages whenever any of these files change to REO and the field that or the status rather that the loan is changing to is described by this to field. So what this will do is anytime any loan changes to an REO status from any other status, this task is going to be populated for that file. So we'll call this procure sales agent because we want to get this REO sold, and assign it a priority of high, and we'll just assign it to the file manager. And so that's about it. One other final field here that you can add to any smart task is to assign a relative due date. So as you can see, the due date field is X number of days after the task has been created. So I can say here, I can basically give someone a countdown to get the task completed after it's automatically generated. So we'll say I want to procure a sales agent, have whoever I assign this to get a hold of that sales agent and get the property ready to sell, get that ball rolling. Let's say I want to have that all done by 7 days after the task has been created. I type in 7, and it's as simple as that. So I'm going to click Add Smart Task, and we've got our first smart task, and that's a status change based smart task. It can be turned on and off by clicking Disable. You can see here it's enabled, so anytime a loan of any status changes to the REO status, this task will be created for that loan. So next up, we're going to want to create a date-based smart task. Again, just to walk you through an example of what that may look like, I'm going to click Add Smart Task again to get me the Smart Task editor prompt, and this time I'm going to change the trigger to time. So it's going to be a time or a date-based smart task. So there are some subtleties to this as well. First, I can describe which statuses, substatuses, and sales stages I want this to apply to. Again, clearly there can be a very large number of possible combinations you can come up with here. For now, I'm just going to leave it as all, just for the sake of the example. Our next field here is when. So what this does is let you specify a number of days before, on, or after the task is created. So just to break it down again here, this task is going to be created based on a certain date. So this date can be a one-time specific calendar date like November 25th, 2014, or it can be a variable date that piggybacks off of whatever the date is for a field in your database. So to give you an example, let's say I want to use a date field from my database. We've got a bunch of different types of date fields here. Let's say that I've got my BPO date field, for example. So what I'm aiming for here is a task to be created a fixed period after my BPO date for any file I have, where I want whoever's in charge of that file to essentially update the BPO. So what I'm going to do is say order new BPO. That'll be the name of this task, just because I want to get an updated valuation or updated comps, let's say, for the value of this property. And then let's say I want this to be done every 3 months. So after 90 days after the current BPO date, I want this task to be created where it'll tell somebody to order a new BPO, and it'll do that. So just assign this to the file manager. Again, down here we have a due date, so you can give someone a timeline to get this done by. But just to recap, what this will do is basically issue a task to a user to order a new BPO in 90 days after. Let's change that to after. So a user will be instructed to order a new BPO 90 days after any file's current BPO date. And that's for any file of any status. So I'm going to add that smart task, and that's there. So we've got our status change based one, we've got our date based smart task to keep our BPOs updated, and get those BPOs refreshed constantly. And then our last smart task category here is workflow based. Now, if you haven't seen the video we have on our workflow feature already, to sum it up, workflows are visual flowcharts, visual progress trackers, where you can prescribe the names and number of steps for a workflow you have for each of your statuses and substatuses, and these steps are just things that your firm consistently does in working out loans, and these workflows are specific to each substatus. So what you can do normally is assign tasks to those workflows and make it so moving ahead in your workflow is dependent on completing tasks that have been linked to different workflow steps. It helps to view that workflow video first to have a concrete understanding of what I'm referring to here. I suggest you check that out if you haven't already. I'm going to proceed assuming you understand what workflows are, what they look like. So I'm going to go ahead and create a smart task for one of my workflows. So as normal, I'm going to click the add smart task button. I'm going to select the trigger as a workflow, and then I'm going to choose the workflow that I want to create this smart task for. So if you remember, all statuses and or substatuses can only have one workflow. So whatever substatus I choose, it's going to be the same number of steps and same names of these steps throughout the database. So I have a workflow created already for non-performing pending modification, and this smart task is going to be created when the calculate mod step is reached. So basically, because workflows start out on that first step, this smart task will be created whenever loans enter this substatus at all. So this first smart task I'm going to create, it's part of the calculate mod workflow step. So it's just like before in the other video, except this time, instead of adding the tasks manually for every file that's a pending modification, I'm just going to schedule these now so I don't have to do it in the future over and over again. So my first task, my first smart task rather, for the calculate mod workflow step will be to basically crunch the numbers and come up with a mod proposal for our borrowers. So I'm just going to call that task crunch numbers. I'm going to skip the description. I'm just going to assign that to whoever the file manager is for that file. I can assign a due date here if I want. For the sake of the example, I'm just going to skip that. And I've got my first workflow-based smart task. So I'm going to add another one just to show you how you're able to really take advantage of the combination of workflow and smart task features and essentially automate almost all of your loss mitigation workout processes and flow of work. So another task I might commonly have with that same substatus of pending modification, the same workflow for that substatus, and the same step. After I've calculated the numbers I want to propose to our borrowers, I'm going to run it by our management, make sure it checks out by them. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call this task obtain management approval of the mod proposal I'm going to send out before I send it out. So that'll be that task for that step. And just as before, I'm going to click add task. And so now you can see I've got, for just that one workflow And just that one workflow step, I've already got 2 tasks here that will appear every time any loan enters that workflow's first step. So again, the possibilities are really endless here. You can totally take advantage of this to kind of build an entire system of smart tasks based on workflow that will get your loss mitigation processes and protocols operating like a very well-oiled machine without you having to do much work at all after you've got these all set up to begin with. So with this, I've shown you a couple basic examples of what you can do with smart tasks, but bear in mind that's all they are. They're just a couple of examples, and they're pretty elementary. You can do a lot with these smart tasks. You can make them very complex and really make it so your entire database is really tailored to your firm's method and process of working out your loans and getting them through the loss mitigation process. So we hope you've enjoyed this video and found it informative and helpful. If you need any other help, as always, you can always refer to our user guide for NoteWorks version 2 and call us or write in with any questions you may have or help you may need, and we'll be happy to assist you. So thanks once more for watching this video, and thanks a lot for using NoteWorks.